All right, everybody, we are back. We are live and we are going to keep going. So here we are. And again, my name is Lisa Gunshore. I'm here with Julie Hoyle. We're talking about keeping it real, and we are definitely keeping it real by having live technology challenges. But here we are. So welcome back, Julie.
Thank you so much. Hey, it's kind of hilarious given the theme, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so our conversation before we went off was about, how to rise above or see our challenges from a higher perspective. Obviously, not denying them, right? It's not about spiritual bypassing and denying what's happening. So, obviously, if you've lost your job or you've got difficulties in a relationship or whatever the story is, it's really about learning to see it from the highest perspective. And what I was inviting listeners to do is to share their own practices with respect to finding touchstones and to come back to center. And you were in the middle of sharing yours, so I'd love to hear that, because we weren't able to hear that before we went off.
Yes, and this is much better connection. So happy day. Yeah, so for me, what I was saying is I'm really into looking at and feeling my body. That seems to be what's bringing me into a present space of where we are right now and not where we're headed. And it seems kind of funny to be a psychic medium for a living, because it's like I'm spending my life looking ahead, but it's really all about what's right now.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of funny that way. And so after looking at everything that might be coming down the pipeline, I think what I do right now is I just look at my hands, I touch my feet, maybe I do a yoga practice and just come back to my center. That's what I'm doing these days, to just try to clear my energy and remind myself of what's important, and that all of the external information is really not important, nor does it impact me in the way that it's only if I allow it. So
Yes. Yes. Look, I think we talked about this before, and I love what you're saying about the physicality, your physicality connecting in, right? And feeling your feet. One of the yogic practices is to just adopt Chin Mudra, which is putting your forefinger and thumb together so that you're creating this kind of unified energy field and flow, connecting in that way. It's very simple. You can do it at work. Nobody knows what you're doing, if you're in a meeting or whatever. But it's really about connecting in with your physicality and listening to what your body's saying, because your body never lies. So if your heart's racing or you're feeling tremendous discomfort in any part of the body, or you've got pains or aches or whatever where there's holding, the body is a great sort of portal into looking at what is presenting itself, and maybe what you're wanting to pull away from, or what you're feeling uncomfortable about, or kind of is, creating this anxiety. So that is really a very simple, accessible thing to do. It doesn't cost anything. It doesn't require time. It's just, always available to us. And I love that. And I could share other things, but I'd love to invite, if anybody's still with us at this point.
They are. We have folks here. So yeah, guys, let's see what your practices are. Go ahead, Julie, what you were going to say.
Yeah, because I think it's really, really important, especially now, given what's happening. Because especially political sort of turmoil. It's all about energy. There's only one consciousness, right? There's one unified energy field. So if there's discord, if there's discontent, if there's turmoil, if there's trauma that is happening, we're all feeling it energetically. And usually what happens is we start to feel it in our body. At some point, it starts in the subtle body, works its way through the emotional and psychological, then we feel it in the physical body, and usually we feel it in the kind of the weaker areas of the body. So if you have a tendency to have a tight neck, or migraines, or whatever whatever condition shows up for you, then it will play itself out, to get your attention, essentially, to look at what your call to action is, to sort of take care of that, and just make sure that you're not allowing all this kind of bombardment to take up residency in your mind, and to give it free space for no rent, right?
Yeah.
Just all this drama and all these stories, because what happens is, what we take in and what we imbibe and what we swallow, so to speak, starts to show up in our physicality, and then down the line it sort of can become a chronic condition. So all of this is really important, because it's all about making sure you're not spiritually bypassing by trying to meditate and things away or ignore them. Keeping your feet grounded, and being present and being where you are. Obviously having compassion and doing whatever you can to sort of help other people, and really looking at what your own call to action might be, with response to in response to what is happening, either locally or globally. And all of this is about keeping it real, being on task, and not kind of getting pulled off center with some of the sort of the crazy stories that are going on, and the dramas, and all the different theories that are circulating. And again, just being very careful about what you take in and imbibe. Even if it's a really juicy, compelling story, it's really important to do a sort of a checklist within your own being, with respect to what feels right and what is authentic and what is holding true for you, rather than taking on and swallowing stories that somebody's heard from somebody else, and so it goes on. Because the thing as well is, as we know, thoughts have no power in and of themselves, but the power is our focus and our attention. When we start directing energy and light and focus on a thought or a belief, that is what empowers it. That is what gives it energy. That is what makes it real. So, all the yogic masters that I've ever worked with always speak about cleaning the space of the mind, keeping that space fresh and clean and not cluttered with all these kinds of beliefs and ideas that, like I said, are often inherited and don't have a full basis in truth. They might be partly true, but don't necessarily have the full basis in absolute truth. And the way you check that is by going inside yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So especially at this time, we just have to be very careful about making sure we do whatever practices we can do to keep us centered and grounded, and not kind of, if you like, choosing sides, so to speak, and pointing fingers and buying into all these different sort of narratives that are circulating. So
yeah,
practices are...
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. There's a few things you said, and we've got some great shares too of practices. But the physicality piece that you're talking about is definitely worth talking about, because, as you know, I was physically ill from a lot of the energy that's floating around. But in my conversations with a lot of my colleagues, a lot of us are feeling that. We're either emotional or, feeling ill, or so that it seems like right now, with all of the unrest, that the physical taking on of that is really happening big time with a lot of different healers and folks who are tuned into the energy. So I don't know if there's anything else you want to say about that, but I just know like it definitely seems to be even my kids are experiencing that right now this week. So
yeah, I mean, there's quite a bit I can say about that. So, you know, again, through story, and it holds true with every situation, but you know, not that many years, maybe how many years ago, 10, 15 years ago, when I was working in Kiev, I was there for a year teaching at an international school. And I really loved the city. It was really vibrant and wonderful, and there was a lot going on culturally. But there was a weight. There was a heaviness. There's this palpable grief that I was feeling, and I couldn't quite put my finger on what it was. But what happened was, you know, we left. We did a year and then left at the end of June. Forget whatever year it was. And Anthony and I spent some time in the UK. We had some vacation there. And I just, from day one, as soon as I landed in the UK, I just was feeling absolutely exhausted beyond words. I couldn't put my finger on what was wrong, that I just felt completely and utterly drained. And the only thing that, you know, I kept just getting this drive, this desire to meditate. So I took myself off and sat, you know, in the bedroom and started to meditate. And as soon as I closed my eyes, I saw this massive, dark kind of ball of energy that was sitting in front of me. And it was connected to my third chakra and my heart chakra with these kind of thick cords. And the minute I saw it, I realized what it was. It was this collective grief that I'd somehow agreed to, because we agreed to take this energy on. So I had agreed on some level to take this on, and it had grown and it had built and it was really massive. And so I just started to focus and direct light into it. And the way I did that was by mentally repeating the mantra that I'd been given by the master yogis that I've worked with. And the mantra is Om Namah Shivaya. Om is the primordial sound. Namah, I bow to. And Shivaya is supreme consciousness. So I was forcefully directing the mantra into this kind of mass. And after some time, it took about 45 minutes to an hour. I just was watching it as it was diminishing, and it finally sort of shrunk. And then it just kind of fell away. And I just literally got up off the bed, and I was feeling amazing. Like my energy had returned to me and I was feeling really wonderful. And then, as synchronicity would have it, I went online, and there was this whole story about how people were shot and killed and thrown over this kind of big ravine in Kiev during World War II, during occupation, when the city was occupied or overrun with Nazis, and they had killed, I don't know, 2,000 or 3,000 people. It was a lot of people and a lot of children, and they had been thrown down this ravine and sort of covered up. So I knew that that what I was seeing was related to that. And I also have other instances where I've taken on energy and, you know, I've had to work with it when I've been working with clients or groups. And I also know that this is the Siddha way, because what happens is when people come to Siddhas and work with them and they give initiation, then Siddhas say that devotees or seekers come and they leave their karma at the feet of a master yogi. And it's the work of the master yogi to burn off the karma, or burn off the pain and burn off the suffering of the devotee. And to a greater or lesser degree, all those of us who are doing our inner work and have been called to do the work of expanding or directing light and sharing light, we're all doing the same thing. We're all, you know, and I don't need to kind of, I don't think, tell any more stories about this, because we've all had circumstances where we've maybe sat and listened to somebody, and that person is sharing his or her heartbreak or difficulties and so on and so forth, and we take it on, and they stand up and feel great and walk away really light and feeling good. And we're left feeling really heavy. So, and I know everybody who's listening has had that experience. So the reason I'm sharing all of this is because what's important is to understand what your call to action is, again, with respect to how to clear that energy through either your own meditation practice, doing your own energy work, I don't know, taking a walk in nature, chanting, singing, meditating, but doing something to help shift and clear and transmute what you have agreed to take on. Because we all agree, we all do it. You know, oftentimes it's not conscious, but each of us does it. And I actually spoke about this in one of the chapters in my book, Meeting the Shadow, Finding Yourself, where you have really sensitive kids that take on the pain and the angst, and whatever that is, of a parent, a mother or father, in disappointments, anger, you know, whatever it is. We often agree to take that on and hold it until we know what to do with it. You know, and being conscious of this is really important, because then when you're conscious of it, you recognize when that kind of feeling of discontent or exhaustion belongs to you, and when it's maybe something you've taken on from someone else or from a group. That can happen too when you're working with a group, as you probably well know, Lisa.
Yes, yes. Well, and I think right now, you know, it's understanding that when we're looking at news, or we're looking at social media, or we're looking externally, we're taking a lot on right now because of the polarization of what's happening. And so shutting that off is key for sure. And I've had to remind myself of that. And, you know, we're all having to remind each other, like, just turn it off and go inside, because that's where you're going to get the information. That's where you're going to find peace and be able to purify it. There's so many good practices right now that have been listed. I'm going to read some of them for you, Julie, here. So there's meditation, taking time to rest when I need it, trying to laugh as much as possible. That's coming from Still Point Healing Arts. April, hi, April. She says, I've been teaching and practicing 3 pillars. 1, physically grounding and aligning posture. Number 2, noticing clenching. And number 3, noticing breath. So lovely.
Yes.
Melon Star says, I do yoga to focus on breath and stretch the body, and been getting grounded by doing gardening. That sounds nice.
Yes.
Human Being says, turning off all media, being barefoot in nature. Whenever I feel the need for truth, I go as far out into the country as I can and spend the entire day grounding. Eve's here. Happy birthday, Eve. It's Eve's birthday today. And she says, I bring cosmic light through my crown chakra, pull earth energy up, charge my chakras, release negative energy, and radiate love heart energy out to the earth. Superpower Consulting says, what I find when I go inside is the message to disconnect, because I can create my own reality. Nothing about what is being put out there is truth. So those are some of the practices that everybody's sharing. Really beautiful, you guys.
Yes, yes. You know, and look, here's the thing is that many of those practices, I'm sure, just kind of land. What happens is when it's organic and it feels right, they just kind of land in you, and you know which ones work for you and which ones to work with, right? And all of those, I mean, the one that April suggested, which was the clenching one, again, is a really great, very accessible, practical tool. I mean, we all know what that means, right? So it's not like you have to kind of cultivate and practice it. These are such simple practices that we can all utilize really effectively. Because obviously, given depending on what your schedule looks like, not everybody has the time to be able to sit and meditate for an hour and a half or 2 hours every morning. It's just oftentimes just isn't the reality. So it's really about, looking at your life, looking at where you are, looking at, what feels right for you, and utilizing that practice to the best and the highest effect. And of course, if you do that, then you're able to go out and about and be with people in their turmoil, in their angst, and you can be the bright light that shines real and true, and then helps them come back to the center, instead of just kind of getting pulled into sort of tsunami, hurricane of noise and energy, which just really doesn't benefit anybody. Because look, as we all know, if you sit and speak to somebody who's like, going on and kind of complaining and moaning and, in a rage about this or that, and you join it and you're both in the swirl of that, neither one of you comes out of that feeling good. You come out of it feeling like crap, right?
Yeah.
And we all know what that feels like. And I'm sure many of us have worked with people, and I've written about this a couple of times, when you work with somebody who's just a big time complainer and everything's wrong and everything's, nothing is ever right, and just whinge. What happens is, when people see that person coming towards them, they turn the other way and run, because it's the darkness coming towards you, and no one is attracted to darkness. It's the light. We're attracted to the light. We're attracted to those that exude positivity and exude feelings of expansion and exude opportunities for resolution, and to be able to see clearly and see a way forward, rather than somebody's just like takes you further into that dark pit of despair.
Yeah, well, I have a question for you, Julie. Talking about this is, it's one thing to turn off the news or to shut off your phone, but you can't really shut off your family or your close friends necessarily. And I know a lot of folks are dealing with that right now, with just a lot of, opinions and finger pointing and different things. So, do you what's the difference between, like, you don't want to completely ignore it and deny it, but at the same time, you don't want to let that energy in. So how do you handle that in a loving way, in a compassionate way? Because I think all of us are seeing some splits going on in our lives that are challenging.
Sure. And, look, I've got very, very simple practice.
Good.
Everybody. And it's the same practice that I employ when it comes to people who are spiritual friends, right? Who I was once part of a community with, a spiritual community. And that is, I have really strong boundaries. And I'm going to give you some examples of how that works, just to kind of make it clear for everybody, both with friends and with family members. So I've had a few messages. I'm speaking specifically now to friends in spiritual communities, but I've had a few messages from people who feel that they need to kind of share with me these updates on new, essentially, conspiracy theories or theories about this, that, and the other, and they feel, and it's coming from a good place. They want me to watch a video or read the latest, update from someone who's on YouTube here, or, has a platform or something like that. And a lot of it's kind of far out there. And what happens is, I will usually either hit the link and listen to a few words, or read a little bit of the article, just to give it attention, just to see. But if there's an energy there that does not sit well, and is either really out there or doesn't come from a place of truth, then I'll just close it off. And then what I'll do is I'll send, and I have a friend that sent me 3 or 4 different versions of kind of all kinds of stuff that she felt that I needed to know about. So I wrote to her and I said, look, I really appreciate, I value your opinion, I value your beliefs, but please don't send me any more information along these lines that speak to what is being spoken to, because it doesn't have relevance and it doesn't have resonance. The big thing is it doesn't have resonance for me, and I really thank you very much for thinking of me, but please don't send any more. And I say the same to family members who feel that they want to share things with me that I need to know. And actually, speaking of which, I had something that landed on at the weekend from a family member that they wanted to bring to my attention. And I just said, thank you so much. I appreciate it. But, I'm really not interested. I value who you are. I love you very much. But there's no space for that here. It really doesn't, there's no resonance. And up to this point, everybody's been very respectful about that. And if they weren't, then I'd obviously have to, I have to say something else. But I'm very clear about what I'll let in and what I won't let in. And quite honestly, too, with some of the messages I've received that have landed via Messenger, I don't even open them because I can tell from the energy in the link that it's not coming from the highest place. So don't even open it. I'll just delete it. And the same holds true with emails. I can tell if the energy is coming from a high place and if it isn't, and I won't even respond. So those are very simple practices, just to be really clear about boundaries. It's really all about boundaries.
Yeah.
And saying thank you, especially with family members. I really love you. I really appreciate your point of view. But, please don't send me any more texts or messages or whatever. And I guess it's easy for me to say too, because we haven't been able to travel. I haven't been able to visit family, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sit in on conversations, because that can be very awkward when there's conversations. But, by the same token, I would just draw a line under it and say, you guys carry on. I'm just going to step outside, or, I'm not interested. Feel free to carry on the conversation. Because, I think this is really important. It's about sort of taking your power back, not feeling like you have to be polite and accommodating to everybody, because even if they're family members, you don't have to be.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, that all makes sense. Well, and I think, when it comes to there's information coming in, I know I had to send a post within the One Heart, One Earth community just asking to please stop the information streams. I think we're all overwhelmed with that. But, there's also a lot of anger. There's a lot of anger. And, we took a stand as Buddhist Biohacker early on last year against violence. This is a non-violent community. And
Yes.
there's definitely a lot, I think, because, I think everyone wants to be seen and heard. And so I think there's a lot of finger pointing and anger going on. And so boundaries with that, I think, is important too, being able to shut down anything that's coming at you, because everybody wants to be right now. I heard a really beautiful thing today, Julie, from Andrew Bartzis, who's been on the show, and he was talking about, there is no right or wrong. There's only choice. There's really only your own personal choice. And I really liked that, and just wondering what your thoughts are on all of that too.
I think that the quote that kind of all lands in me and comes up for me whenever there's this kinds of discussion is something that one of the master yogis said to me years and years and years ago, which just kind of blew my mind at the time, but now it makes total sense. And he said, truth exists in all perspectives simultaneously. And what I understand by that now is that, you know, let's say both sides, let's say there's two sides, warring sides right now. But, you know, both of the groups that really believe and fight for what they believe really hold that truth to be true with respect to their own sort of personal expression, right?
Yeah.
And they're speaking and acting from that place. So even if you try and sort of persuade otherwise, if you're in the opposing faction, let's say, you're not going to get anywhere, because that's kind of, that truth is really held onto really, really tightly. But and there's truth with respect to personhood or personal expression, right? But there's the higher truth, the highest truth, the supreme self, source, whatever you want to call that, which is a kind of above or beyond that, but also, you know, allows and includes both of these perspectives to be in it, sees it from that place where there is no division.
Mm-hmm. Wait, can
Really,
you repeat that quote again, Julie? I'm going to put it up on the screen while you're talking. Can you repeat that quote again?
yes, truth exists in all perspectives simultaneously.
Thank you. I'm putting it up on the screen for everyone.
And, you know, and it's truth. You know, and the thing as well is that you know, another master yogi says there's relative truth and then there's ultimate truth. You know, what he was speaking to is relative truth relative to personal expression, relative to belief systems, relative to our perceptions and how we've been raised and our beliefs and all of those things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's ultimate truth, which is source itself, kind of watching, if you like, these children fighting. You know, and look, everything that we've been speaking to today, really, and, you know, really and truly, your capacity to be able to see truth from the highest perspective really hinges on whether you've done your own shadow work. Because if you haven't dealt with your own darkness, your own anger and your own frustration and your own depression and despair and all of those things, then you will have to, by default, look for forms of that or expressions of that in the outside world. So you'll always be in need of looking for drama and for war and for conflict and for disagreement. And the minute you actually do that work, your own shadow work, look into the darkness within, and you transmute that and you allow it and you embrace it and you learn from it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then there's this tremendous compassion that kind of opens up within you, and the capacity then to realize that you're both the light and the dark, and you find the meeting place between that, which is the truth of the supreme self or source itself, which is prior to the story and the drama and all the other things that we believe ourselves to be. And so, you know, the point is that we can, you know, keep trying to help people, so to speak, you know, come to that realization, but ultimately the work is always one of personal responsibility and a willingness to actually do the work and to stop looking outside themselves and to see what is actually here. So it's always about coming home and seeing what we're being called to, and to really knuckle down and do the work.
You know, I woke up Sunday morning and my collective spirit team, whoever they are, said to me, everything that you see in the news is false. And not just regular news, all information is false. And to really just shut it off. And I sat with that for the last couple of days. And, you know, it really is true that our truth lies within ourselves. That's just so true. And I'm really grateful for being able to understand that during this time, because what I'm seeing is, and we've talked about this before, but the hooks, and it's hard. Like I've gotten caught in it too. There's these hooks of like, what's going to happen and where's everything going? And you want to watch what people are saying. And it's really like, whoa, like, look how hooked we are into all of this stuff, all this information, and being able to go back inside ourselves and trust ourselves. I feel like that's the whole lesson of 2021. Like it's already unfolded. Like the lesson is, are you going to listen to yourself and what's inside?
Yes. And, for me, the big kind of buzz or keywords are about taking responsibility and looking at your call to action. What is it? And what you were saying about, nothing that you see in the news or whatever news really is true. Really to the fact that to be able to speak truth, you have to be in truth within yourself. So, whether you have a political commentator, a politician, whatever that person is, if he or she does not know who they are prior to the story, then what they're sharing, even though there's a real belief that it's the truth, and it's the relative truth. It's relative to the story of the person. It's relative to the story of what's happening, in that sort of dynamic. It's not the highest truth with respect to seeing and perceiving from source itself. And that is really what you heard in the message that you received on Sunday. And the beauty as well of all of that is that these kinds of messages are really landing full force and, in sort of a very dynamic and powerful way in those people that are ready to hear it and are awake and are doing the work and are engaging in this opportunity we have to try and sort of help uplift humanity and to bring awakening. We've spoken about this before, you and I, awakening to the whole of humanity and to the whole globe, which is what the Buddha's kind of mission was, right?
Yeah.
To not rest until everyone was awakened. And this is everyone's call. So, to be able to stay sort of on target and on track, we have to make sure that we're not pulled into all the sort of narratives and the dramas, and we are listening to our own inner guidance and doing, whatever practices we're called to that allow us to hear. Because, everybody's given inner guidance. It's there all the time for us. Always. It's just that oftentimes there's a tendency not to create space for it. I should say, I'm too busy, you know what I mean? To do the practice.
Yeah.
So that was why I invited people to share what the simple practices are, because everybody has time to sort of notice clenching in the body, or to feel your feet on the ground, or to connect with your breath, or whatever's going on through your physical expression.
I feel like our bodies are really more important than ever. It's kind of, I felt going into this year, like, and you and I talked about this all last year about humanity, being in our humanity and not denying humanity. But what I love and what's been very interesting to me is, as this year changed over, I really felt like, we've done all this work, and we being all of you guys, everybody in the community, everybody that we're all connected, we've done the get out of the body stuff. We've done the meditations. We've done the energy work. We've looked at grids around the planet. We've done all that stuff. And what I really felt from the collective this year was, now it's time to bring that into the body, into the physical experience, into the human experience. It's time to make God in form through our creative space. And it's really cool.
Yes. And the thing that landed in me really strongly just before, we moved into 2021, was it's time to be the embodiment and the truth that God exists,
Mm.
and to express from that place rather than, and this is why I speak about this quite a bit, and I have all of last year. It's so easy to quote spiritual masters and gurus and, current enlightened teachers and come up with their quotes, and use them as a model, right? About you. What about being in your own physical expression, fully embodied in that, and in the realization that you are more than the body and the mind? And then really connecting in and realizing and owning that there's no difference between you and Eckhart Tolle in terms of oneness, in terms of spirit, in terms of the supreme self or higher self or whatever you want to call it, or Jesus or Buddha or whoever it is, that His Holiness the Dalai Lama, whoever it is that you revere and you recognize as being in this high state and connected to God, to source. And the thing that I always remind people is for you to have that recognition in the first place. So for you, Lisa, for example, when I'm sure when you first met His Holiness, you're probably like, oh my God, awareness. Because you could feel it, right? There's the energy.
Yeah.
The energy is palpable and it's unmistakable.
Yes.
So whoever it is you hold as being, you revere as being not only connected to source, but source itself. In order for you to see and recognize that in a seeming other, you have to be in that same space or source itself, because only source can recognize source. The mind doesn't recognize source. So source itself sees source itself in a seeming other, and what is happening is source or God or whatever you want to call it is bowing to its own reflection in the form of another. And that is the truth. And that's why we go like, oh my God, when you read the words of Hafiz or Rumi, or you see footage of a great being, I love to watch footage of Father Bede Griffith, who is a great, Christian mystic. Just seeing him walk across the fields in India when he was alive, he's passed now, it's just wonderful. Or you see the mother, who was Sri Aurobindo's kind of partner. You see old footage of her, you just go, oh. Or Ananda Mayima, whoever it is. What's happening is the Supreme Self as this, this expression is seeing it in another, and there's this recognition. And this is what it means by self-recognition, right? Recognizing the Supreme Self in a seeming other. And in reality, there's only one. So self sees itself. And this is what we're called to really own that recognition and to live and express and speak and share from that place of recognition and stop pretending otherwise.
Well, you talking about it just lights me up on fire when you talk about it. And I just see this beautiful unfolding of, and this is, you can call it the age of Aquarius, but just like you're saying, we're stepping into this time where you don't have to be an elite movie star to have a show, right? We have one right here. You don't need to be some kind of special person to be a psychic or to be an artist or to make a movie, right? Like, so I just see this beautiful unfolding of everyone is that, and everyone can create that. There's no more division or exclusion or superiority. It's this level playing field for everyone. And I just think that's so incredible, because that is what we're doing now. And that's where we're going, is everyone can do it.
Yes, exactly. Well, everyone can do it if they have the courage and the sort of the tenacity, if you want to call it that, and you know, and also the willingness to sort of take action and step into the call to action rather than being lazy about it. Because, you know, again, I know you and I have worked with people that have done practices for years and years and years and years and years and years and years, and they'll say, "Oh yes, I know. Oh yes, I know. Oh yes, I know," but don't actually do anything. Or, you know, they've done the practices, but then don't know how to apply those practices whenever they have a, you know, difficult situation in their work, for example, or in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really about understanding, seeing one's life from the highest perspective, and also the world from the highest perspective. Uh, Obviously, being real, being grounded, and being authentic, and then knowing, you know, how to respond when there's any sort of difficulty, in a practical way, not just saying, "Oh, I'll pray about it," you know, I'll meditate on it. Okay, so you've lost your job, or you've got, you know, maybe your income has been impaired because of the pandemic. Okay, what are you going to do about it? How are you going to be creative about generating new income, for example? I'm just kind of throwing that out. Or, you know, you've got to work from home or something. You know, how are you going to do that in a way that is kind of proactive and inspiring rather than whinging about it? You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? So there's just so many nuances to this. But you know, the thing, and this is the reason I really love this community and I love what you've created, is that everybody who, you know, shows up and participates is actively doing the work and is engaging and is making changes in his or her life and is shining brightly in their own way and in their own lives, and being very creative about how to respond whatever difficulties are showing up, and that they're not just kind of sitting back doing nothing about it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
um, this is what I really love, because we need people to be engaged and to be doing the work and to be willing to, you know, maybe step into a call to action that is uncomfortable. Like, you know, maybe somebody, you invite somebody to come on to this, you know, channel and share, and they've never done it before, and it's like, oh, I'm not sure I can do it. No. You know, or there's a call to write a book, or there's a call to create a blog, or there's a call to kind of be more out there with what you're doing. And you know, that's all part and parcel of it. Because the thing is if we say no and we diminish ourselves, then the light in the world is diminished.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really about owning that and just saying yes. And then, as we talked about before, you know, we're given all the help we need, and we certainly find a way to be able to, you know, try on new things and stretch ourselves. And sometimes it's uncomfortable. But to me, it's the only way to live. I can't imagine not living like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, you
Um,
almost aren't. I mean, that's the thing is, Mike, you know, I want to speak directly to what you're saying too about like doing the spiritual practices and yet seeing the same patterns. Maybe you're still alone, or maybe you're still in toxic relationships, or maybe you're still having trouble at work, or whatever it is. And I want everyone to know, like, I think Julie and I both have been there, but I want to speak directly about my experience. Like, I've been there. I just am finishing my second book or third book or whatever it is. And I noticed a pattern because the book was like, I'm dating and then I go to the Dalai Lama, and then I'm dating and then I go to the Dalai Lama. Julie was there for all of that. And at first, I would go into this very intense spiritual initiation with His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and it was potent and it was beautiful, and it would take me out of my life. And it was like this incredible spiritual escape, you know? And then I'd go back into the world and it was hard, and you know, I'd get caught up in my stuff and I'd be spinning and I'd be worried, and I'd call Julie a bunch of times about some boy, right? I mean, that was what happened.
yes.
And it changed when I started living the teachings in the pain. That was the change. And I didn't even really get that till I wrote this book, to be honest, and really wrote it all out and saw what was happening. This is why journaling is so important. And so that living it in the moment, even in the moment where you're angry or you're sad or you are heartbroken or you're in a pattern, like you know that you're angry and you're going to make a decision that's a decision you've made, or you know you're running from something. Like I knew I was actually making a decision to run from something, and you do something different than what you did before. And that is the change. And, you know, Julie talks about in her new book about saying yes. And it flew out of me before I even realized and made the connection that it was connected with your book. So it cracked me up. I was laughing in Christmas time. But the thing about saying yes is it's not just about doing something, but it's actually doing the spiritual call to action, or the whatever call to action it is, doing it in the moment, not thinking about it, not meditating, not, oh, I've known for years I'm supposed to write a book or whatever. It's like, no, I'm just go write it. Like it's doing the activity. It's having compassion in the moment. It's getting the angry text message and taking a deep breath and responding in a compassionate way and not reacting. So I just can't say enough about how my life has changed in the most beautiful, powerful, incredible ways when I started living what the Dalai Lama was teaching, the shadow work that I was working on with Julie, like those. And this is it. This year, I believe, forget 2020, like 2021 is the call to action. This is the invitation this year to live your life, because if you choose to get caught up in what's happening outside, and trust me, I've been there like every other hour, I feel like myself. So I'm in it with you guys. But if we don't continue to work and write and create and live, then we're allowing the narratives outside of us, the external, to stop our ability to create God's source on the planet. And that is going to be a huge failure in humanity if we do that.
Yes. You know, what happens is we walk around in a state of hypnosis because we're hypnotized by the narratives and the stories, and we're not living true to who we are and to what our specific call to action is. You know, and everything just gets numbed down, and then there really is no movement. You know, and in one of the chapters in my new book, I speak to this as well, because, for example, I know people that say they've been writing a book for 10 years. Is that even possible? I mean, come on, seriously. You know, even if you write something and it's not necessarily a massive success or whatever, or you feel it's not your best effort, at least get behind it and actually do it, you know, instead of talking about it, never doing it, and then you go to your grave. As Miles Monroe, one of the ministers here, used to say, you go to your grave with all your gifts still in you. And to me, that is the greatest sorrow, that you would do that, and that you're not shining as brightly as you can, especially in this situation, you know, and really helping to point the way for other people.
Mm-hmm.
It's everybody's call to action. So, you know, we've all said yes, otherwise we wouldn't be here. Right?
It's so true. And I think just do it. Whatever you think you need to do, just do it. And there's so many of you that are. I mean, I'm blown away by the amount. So we've been working on all the One Heart, One Earth content that's been submitted, and we're moving this all into a community platform. So that's coming soon. I am blown away by all of you in the community. We have hundreds of submissions of articles and art and photography and just beautiful stuff. And some of you guys have created beautiful blogs all of the sudden. Some of you guys are creating music for the first time. And so many people are creating YouTube channels and teaching and writing. And that's it. It's everyone's actions that create the community of conscious collaboration. That's what this is all about. And so it's just so incredibly powerful to know that we can all do it. I want to have so many people that can be on this show because we're all creating so many things that there's just not enough time in the day. Like, really. And I just think it's really incredible. So I feel like everyone should like give themselves a pat on the back, because everyone is really creating incredible stuff. And Human Being has a comment that's really beautiful I want to share. They say, the universe seems to operate in terms of probabilities. Therefore, it seems to be more productive to focus on what you'd like to manifest than fear what you cannot control. I think that's a really beautiful statement.
Yeah, that really is. Look, and the thing as well is that, everything you've just said about people that are creating all these amazing things is that in order to create, we have to kind of connect into source itself, right? And to be inspired by that, the flow of that. And really it is source itself that is speaking or is singing or creating music or art or whatever it is, whatever the vehicle is for source. And then whoever views that or hears that or reads those words can feel source. So again, it's the supreme self or source itself sharing itself with a seeming other, with the viewer or the one who listens or watches a video or whatever. So it's really saying yes. When we say yes to that flow and connect in, we're saying yes to the expression of source itself. And that's why we feel so good, because the energy of it moves through us, and it's just the most expansive, amazing feeling. And because of that then prompts us to keep going. And, even if we feel a little bit shy or uncomfortable about it, just to keep connecting in and listening and hearing from that place and then sharing. And there's nothing more beautiful.
I agree. Eileen has a comment. She says, thank you, Lisa and Julie. I have been unsubscribing like crazy. I do not know how I can participate fully in all the different programs. Sometimes guidance isn't clear on what is in my highest path. And I read that because I think Julie and I can both speak to that. And, it's totally okay to start. It's a recognition of what you can commit to, really. And I've been doing the same thing. It's like, I have all these books and all these courses and all these things. And it's like, okay, what can I truly invest my time in? And so it's that practice of spiritual discernment, discerning what is right. So I think that's really great. But Julie, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, this is really key as well. It's an important aspect of getting very clear about what is aligned and resonant for you and what isn't. I've never had much problem with that, because for me, it's always been really clear about where there's a resonance and what's meant for me and what isn't meant for me. And I really don't oversubscribe to things and then just have them sit there, because all of that too, it takes up space. It's energetic space. It takes up space in your kind of psyche and in your being. So it's really good to do a purge and to just kind of clear things out that really just don't have resonance for you. And the more you do that, the clearer you get about what feels right and what doesn't feel right. And then things have a way of just landing in your space that you really do recognize as being, oh my gosh, this definitely has this kind of feeling quality there that is telling me something. And in those instances, those are the instances that we really dive in. And it's not like, it doesn't take any energy, it just feels like what the yogis call the effortless effort. So yeah, I'm really with you. Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
I'm still learning. I had a little, lesson recently, because, there's a fine line with saying yes and also having discernment. And, I said yes to an event that I thought would be really great. And it actually fizzled on its own. So it was kind of a convenient lesson. But I realized when it fizzled out, I thought, oh, the reason that fizzled out is because, I didn't really check in with myself to see if it was aligned with me and my community and everything. And so I think that's why it didn't really pan out. And so it was just a nice reminder, when we commit to something, are we defining the commitment? Are we looking at, is it fully aligned with us before we do say yes? However, if it is fully aligned, it's not giving yourself excuses to get out of it either. So it's a tricky thing to like commit to things, even if it feels risky, but also use discernment to make sure it's aligned. So there's like a fine line between the two, I think.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Because look, the thing as well is that, I get lots of invitations, I'm sure you do, to all kinds of things mainly on Instagram. Do I want to be an ambassador for this, an ambassador for that? All these invitations for sportswear or whatever, people are inviting me to. And then also to participate in events. And just fairly recently, actually, I said yes to an event, and I didn't feel I felt there was a resonance, and it felt good, and, in the beginning. But then what happened was I wasn't given the full picture of actually what the event was about. You know what I mean? So you have to be careful about saying yes to things, but only having been given part of the information rather than the kind of the full extent of what you're committing to. And the thing that I've realized very recently is that I have to be even more mindful about and connecting, really, really fine tuning and connecting what I'm being called to and what I say yes to, because I need to make absolutely certain that what I'm representing is in absolute, and this is what you really are saying at the same time, it's in absolute alignment with the truth. So I'm not saying yes to an event, for example, that promises, everything, let's say prosperity consciousness or whatever it's offering, in 7 days or something, which isn't about keeping it real.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So I just, that is my call to action, to be absolutely certain that when I say yes to something, that it's coming, whoever's sharing or creating the event is coming from the highest place and has done his or her work, has done the shadow work specifically, and is speaking from source itself, because I won't do it otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not going to happen.
I agree. Well, and I really got a pretty clear message about this year, that it's about refinement and not to pile on. I actually had all sorts of things I wanted to, events and things I wanted to do. And a lot of them I've pushed to next year, because I feel like this year is really about consistency and quality and being here for all of you guys and doing this work and not trying to go beyond that. And so I think what you're saying, Eileen, about unsubscribing, like, do it. I think clear the decks and focus on what's really, really important, which are these simple practices you're talking about, Julie. I mean, the simple practices are what to focus on, because everything else is going to fly by us like at 1,000,000 miles an hour, I feel. And
Yes.
let the relationships fall away, let things, go, and just stay simple. I feel like, especially this year, I mean, really always, but this year it feels like really keep it really simple.
Yes. And the practice might just be, obviously those great pointers and practices we were given, about connecting in with those kind of contracted places or watching the breath, all those things are fantastic too. And, it might even just be lighting a stick of incense and just waving that, or doing something at home that you feel really kind of refreshes and moves energy and gets you into a high space, or, connecting back into source. So I think I'm with you absolutely, that 2021 is really about simplicity and being at home with yourself and really doing the practices that are organic to and natural to you, and just watching who you allow in, you know, and just don't allow, whether it's family members, friends, or whatever, spiritual communities, you know, whatever, whoever it is, just being very careful about, you know, who you're giving your time, space, and energy to. And, you know, because it's again about honoring what feels right for you and what doesn't feel right for you. And we all know what doesn't feel, we know what that feels like, right?
Mm-hmm. For sure. For sure. Well, I have a question, but I do want to share. Erica said she's doing a lot of Ho'oponopono practice, which is really beautiful too. I think any kind of forgiveness practice is really important right now. So you're going to be back every month again, which we love, and other times too, which is important. But I have a feeling that a month from now, the landscape will be very different than it is today, however that manifests. And so what are your words of wisdom and your advice for everyone over the next 4 weeks till we see you again? What should we be focusing on? What do you want to say about it?
Well, I would just go back to what I just said a little while ago, which is to keep it simple. Just keep it as simple as possible for yourself, because we all know, again, if we have this sort of convoluted idea about some of the practices to keep us kind of, you know, out of the crazy narratives and all of those things, it doesn't last very long, because it's hard to sustain that, especially when we have a busy schedule, we're working, we've got family and so on and so forth. So I would say the simpler the better. And, you know, having this little sort of grab bag, especially in times when, you know, there is like this intense craziness going, what is your grab bag, you know, to connect in with source? Mine, as I shared, is the Chin Mudra. I just like, even if I have to like really clench, that is just so quick. So I would just have a grab bag of really quick connecting in practices that you can lean into and access without having to set something up with incense and candles and meditation cushion and all of those things and closing the door to the kids or whatever the story is, you know, so that, and walking or doing whatever you have to do to make sure that you can connect with source. Keep it simple. That would be my biggest kind of advice right now, given the situation that we find ourselves in.
I love it. I love the grab bag. I think I want to invite you guys to share your grab bag in the comments here, like when the video posts. And then why don't I post the video with that question on our community page on YouTube also? And we can just keep this conversation going and share what your spiritual grab bag is. I love that, Julie. I love that phrase, because that's exactly where we're at right now. The wind is kicking up and it will take you away if you don't have the ability to ground and connect to yourself. So
exactly. And yeah, it's no fun.
Well, I just love you so much, Julie. I just do. And I'm so happy we're back. I'm so happy that we're here for another year, and it's going to be a good one. And you guys can find everything you need to know about Julie at juliehoyle.org. And I will put that in the show notes. It's in the show notes on the previous link, so I'll add it to this one. And she has incredible books out. She has 4 books, 4 now?
I have 4 books in total. The latest 2, one was published in August, which is Meeting the Shadow, Finding Yourself. And that's been very helpful for a lot of people. And the latest one is Wake Up and Say Yes, a practical guide to lucid living and lucid dreaming. And that just went live on Sunday. There was a pre-sale, but it just went live on the 10th. So both of those you can find, you know, if you go to juliehoyle.org, there's details about, you know, how to find those. They're on Smashwords and on Amazon. I just put them onto Kindle a few days ago, so they are available. And yeah, and I've got to An Awakened Life is the first book, which was about my radical spiritual awakening. And then the second book is Living in Alignment, which is a sort of practical tools to help you kind of connect in with source and do self-inquiry. So so I've been busy writing and loving it. So you've frozen, Lisa.
Did I freeze? Am I back?
Yes, you're back now. So it's all good.
Okay. Well, I love your books. I'm very excited to read your newest one, and it's on my list of things to do this month. And I highly recommend that you guys dive into all of the support that Julie has to offer. She has been supporting me for like 16 years, and it's been just incredible for me. So definitely dive in. Julie also has a YouTube channel, so you can go find Julie Hoyle here on YouTube, and she does so many great little messages that are just really potent. So I invite you to share in that as well. And then this week, just with Buddhist Biohacker, I am hosting a new moon sacred ceremony tomorrow on Zoom. So please go to Eventbrite and get the information for that. I'll post a link on the community portion of the YouTube channel as well. It's a big day. And then Delisa Hawking and I are going forces on Thursday to do a healing circle and to really work on transmuting the collective fear. So please join us for that. It's going to be really powerful. We actually have a guest astrologer who's going to talk about the crazy stuff that's going on right now. And then we are back next week with Tarot Tuesdays with Marlena. We're back with Cheryl talking about herbology. And then Delisa and I are joining forces with two incredible sound healers. One of them is Mary Lydia Ryan, who's been on the channel, to hold a healing circle on Inauguration Day. It's pretty intense energy astrologically. Obviously, if you're in the US, you know what's going on. So we are going to hold a circle that day and really hold space at 11:11 a.m. So I invite all of you to join us for all of this important work. You know, March last year, I started doing these summits and all these things, and it just keeps going. So we just keep collectively healing as much as we can. And it's really about transmuting fear right now and being in the present moment and trusting, you guys. Just trust yourself, for God's sakes. Don't worry about what everybody's telling you is happening. You've got to go inside. It's the energy that will tell you what's happening. That's the answers that you're looking for. It's not all the stuff that's happening around us. So keep that in mind. So with that, I love you, Julie. I love each and every one of you out there. We have such big stuff coming. It's unbelievable. It's going to be a fabulous year.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Sending you much love. Bye.